know the next tapes, we're moving on to the husband.
Yes, I am.
All right, and in the petition, in your answer and counter petition, you state that your income at the present time is $100,000 a year. Is that what your income is right now?
All right, where is that in the pleading?
It's in Mr. Doe's answer and counter petition. It's
Sure
at
it is,
page...
but where?
Sorry, Your Honor, it's at paragraph 6.
Thank you. Yes, I have it.
Yes, that's what I state as my answer.
All right, when your answer and counter petition were prepared,
Yes.
in July of this year, was in fact your income $100,000 per year?
That's what I anticipated it to be.
All right, and since then, have you changed your opinion as to what your income will be?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what my income will be. I haven't completed or filed the tax returns.
Okay, Mr. Doe, you've had an opportunity to look over the report of Mr. Rudson.
Yes.
All right, and in that report, he sets out a table, Schedule A,
Yes.
showing what your income has been for 1996, 1997, and 1998.
That's correct.
All right, is the income per personal income tax return shown? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, is the...
He's got that first line where it says income per personal income tax returns.
Yes.
So that is correct. So in fact, for 1998, excuse me, your income was in fact $196,105.
That's what my income tax forms indicated, yes.
All right, now, in your wife's petition for divorce and in Mr. Rudson's report, they've made certain adjustments to your income.
Yes, they had.
All right, what is your occupation?
I'm a chartered accountant, and I'm a mortgage broker.
All right, and the adjustments to income include adding certain things back, such as barter transactions, where you've received certain items, presumably from clients, in exchange for services rendered. Now, in 1999, do you anticipate receiving any barter items?
No, I do not.
Under personal expenses,
Yes.
they've added back in things like advertising, travel, and membership dues.
Yes, they have.
Are you in fact a member at 3 golf clubs?
I am a member at 3 golf clubs. I don't play at all 3, but I am a member there, and I do it primarily for business reasons. It's one way to network and meet new clients.
All right, and if you were paying for these memberships out of your pocket, would you maintain these memberships at these 3 golf clubs?
No, I do not think so. If I was to pay for them personally, I think I would maintain 1. But I pay for all 3 because it gives me an opportunity to meet more people that way.
And it's actually your company that's paying for the 3 memberships, is that not correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. Now, you're also a shareholder in Smith Steel.
Yes, I am.
Have you taken any money out of Smith Steel in the last 3 years?
No, I have not.
And what is your arrangement with Smith Steel?
Well, the arrangement is outlined in the shareholders agreement that I have with my brothers. And in essence, the shares are owned by us. The agreement was that funds remain within the company to capitalize the company for any future downturn.
And have your brothers taken any money out of the company in the last 3 years?
No, they have not.
And what is your long-term plan for the company?
My long-term plan for the company, well, the company is managed by managers. They're paid a salary. We have no direct input as to how the company is going to be run, but from a personal view, that the shares I'm holding in trust for my children, that's going to be their inheritance.
Okay. Now, you also have an investment portfolio that shows a rate of return of approximately 1%. In the report, they talk about the fact that you could invest that money and receive 5%. Why don't you do that?
If you'll note, the shares of the companies that are listed in the exhibit are all blue chip shares. It's a long-term growth investment. I was hoping to retire on that, but it doesn't seem like I will now.
Mr. Doe, I take it that you're not opposed to paying a guidelines amount of support for your children.
Oh, absolutely not.
All right, and the issue really comes down to the extraordinary expenses.
I think so.
And you've had a chance to take a look at what your wife claims are the children's extraordinary expenses.
I've had an opportunity to look at them, yes.
All right, and let's deal with each child individually and talk about your position regarding those expenses. Now, Amanda's the oldest, she's 18?
Yes, she'll be 19 in the fall.
All right, and the extraordinary expenses claimed for her involve her university attendance.
That's correct.
What is your position regarding your contribution to her university expenses?
Well, we've discussed this at length, and Amanda is well aware of the fact that
Sorry, when you say "we," who is "we"?
Amanda and myself,
you.
my spouse and myself, and all three of us, we've all spoken about this. We've obviously encouraged her to go to university, and that's something that she would like to do as well. We want her to do that. And I've said at the outset that we, or at least I, will do whatever I think is appropriate and fair and right under the circumstances. But I also think that she should contribute a portion of the expenses herself.
Has Amanda had part-time jobs over the last few years?
Yes, she has.
And you believe she can continue to do this while she's at university?
I think that at the very least, it would be appropriate for her to work during the summer months. Perhaps initially, it may not be a good idea for her to work part-time, maybe for the first term or the second term of her first year. But certainly, I think that employment from her is important.
All right, and once her employment income is factored in, what's your position on who should pay for her tuition and her living expenses?
Well, I think that that's something that both my wife and I should be responsible for. And we should share those expenses when you factor in Amanda's contribution.
And who made the decision for Amanda to attend at Queen's?
I think that was her decision. I think she wanted to go to that school for a number of reasons. Primarily, I think she may have wanted to leave home. I think some friends were attending the university, and perhaps lastly, her boyfriend will attend the university.
And where do you believe she should be living while she's at Queen's?
Well, I thought it may be a good idea. She's never lived away from home. She's always lived in our home. I thought that initially it may be a good idea if she lived with her aunt in Kingston. It's not too far away from the school. It's a big house. The aunt is elderly and she won't have any problems with her privacy. I thought initially that may be a good transitional period for her to live there, get accustomed to living away from home, getting accustomed to the stresses of university life. And at the same time, perhaps she wouldn't have to work part-time during the first year. And some monies could be saved in that respect.
All right, you and your wife both have university degrees?
Yes, we do.
And who funded those degrees?
We both worked while we were attending school. And we paid a substantial part of at least I did, I paid a substantial part of my educational expenses myself.
And why was that?
We were brought up that way. My father and mother and brothers were in a business environment. We knew the value of hard work. And I would work at the steel plant during the summers. And I earned my way through school that way.
Okay. Now, turning to your son, Jason. Jason has an unusually heavy involvement in hockey.
Yes, he does. He enjoys playing hockey.
All right. And what is your position regarding your contribution to those hockey expenses?
Once again, I think that the expenses, as long as they're reasonable, should be shared. I don't mind paying for his hockey expenses. I've done so in the past, and I'll continue to do so in the future. As far as the amounts, I think whatever is reasonable under the circumstances. I don't think they should be dictated by what my spouse thinks they ought to be, but I think whatever is reasonable under the circumstances, I'm prepared to pay.
Your wife wants to enroll Jason in a one-on-one hockey camp. What is your position on the sharing of those expenses?
Once again, I think if she's going to share in the expense of the children, they should be shared equally. I don't want to distinguish between children and give one child an unfair advantage. But I think that if we're going to share the expenses, they should be shared equally.
Mr. Doe, I understand that you and your wife have a parenting plan as to how much time each of you spend with the children.
Yes, we do.
And tell
I'll
us
just
about...
interrupt for a second. That last answer, then I take it you think it's a reasonable expense that he go to this camp.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. How much time do the children actually spend with you?
Jason by far spends the most time with me, and that's because of our involvement with hockey. So on the weekends that he's with me, we'll attend the hockey schedule, and then on other weekends where the hockey commitments don't coincide with my access, then he'll stay with me. Samantha has usually been with me on the weekends, on alternate weekends. Amanda, because of her work schedule, it's been on and off. It hasn't been consistent.
Okay. Now, when Jason's with you, you take him to and from the hockey games and tournaments.
Yes.
Who buys his equipment?
I do.
All right, and given that we hear that he's 5'7" and weighs somewhere between 110, 130 pounds, has this been an expensive item?
The hockey per se?
The hockey equipment.
Oh, the hockey equipment? Well, hockey equipment usually is expensive, and every year he'll need a few pieces, skates generally, and some other equipment. Yes, sticks.
I understand that Jason's hope is to play in the NHL.
Yes, it is.
Now, did you play hockey yourself as a youngster?
Yes, I did.
All right, what level did you get to?
I got to the junior level.
Okay. Now, regarding Samantha,
Yes,
you know that she's involved in ballet.
that's correct.
And what is your position on the ballet lessons?
She started ballet, I think, in the last year, and I think it's wonderful. I think she's doing well. It's building up her confidence, and I think she should continue going to ballet. And but she's a well-rounded, athletic type of person. So I'm not sure how long this will last, but I'll certainly encourage it for as long as she wants it to continue.
Well, what about the payment of the actual expenses?
I think that the payments are a little high, but I think if the expenses are shared between my spouse and myself, they seem reasonable.
Okay. Your Honor, those are my questions of this witness.
Thank you very much.
Afternoon, Mr. Doe.
Yes, good afternoon.
Just to begin with, when we talk about your practice as a chartered accountant,
Yes.
tell us how much of your total working time you spend in the chartered accountant business.
In terms of time or in terms of finances derived?
In terms of time.
And is that in a weekly basis, monthly basis, or yearly basis?
Yearly basis. Thanks.
I would say I would devote half my time to chartered accountancy and one half to mortgage brokering.
And are most of your chartered accountant clients local clients from the Toronto area?
I would say a substantial amount are, yes.
And your mortgage brokerage clients are local also?
A substantial amount, yes.
How many business trips did you go on since January of 1999?
It averages perhaps once every couple of weeks.
And so since January 99, how many do you think you've been on?
I can't give you an exact figure, but I guess to estimate, maybe 8, 9.
And what's the nature of these business trips?
It's to network with other people that I've met over the years. They send me business.
So it's not to meet with clients, but to obtain referrals?
Some is to obtain referrals, some for the clients that are out of town, to meet with them.
And the majority of the travel is to conferences?
I'm sorry?
Most of the travel is to conferences?
Conferences in, I don't understand conferences.
When you're going on a trip
Yes.
to network with
Yes.
somebody, it's in the context of some kind of conference?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, if I could approach the witness.
Yes, please.
So I'm showing you, sir, a statement that is one of your own productions, and it's from your travel agency, is that right?
It appears to be.
And you'll agree with me that you produced it to us through your counsel following examination for discovery?
I believe so.
So in the month of January, you went on a trip to Maui for 3 weeks, is that right?
According to this, yes.
And do you remember the trip?
I remember the trip. I don't remember whether it was 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks.
And did you take your girlfriend with you?
I think she was there for part of the time, but not the entire stay.
And what business were you conducting in Maui?
A longtime associate was having a conference in Maui.
Did you play any golf?
Yes, yes, I play golf.
Did you go sightseeing?
Some.
In the month of February, you went to Whistler for 6 days. And is that right?
Yes.
And isn't it true that you told Amanda that you skied 5 out of 6 days on that trip?
I think I was trying to make her feel good about her dad getting up in years, but I think I may have only skied once or twice.
Sorry, sorry. You told
I think
Amanda.
I boasted to Amanda that I skied 5 or 6 days, but in fact, I only skied once or twice.
Okay. And did you go to Palm Beach for 10 days in the month of February also?
I think it was a week.
And the month of March, you didn't travel. Is that right?
I don't believe so, no.
That's tax time.
Yes,
And are you busy during tax season?
generally.
You work long hours?
14-hour days most of the time.
Most of the weekends too?
Some weekends.
And in the month of April, you went to Aspen for 10 days?
Yes,
And you took your girlfriend with you on that trip as well?
I think she may have accompanied me for a couple of days, yes.
And there wasn't any particular conference associated with that trip, was there? It was just purely recreational?
Part of it was, yes.
It was the end of tax season and you needed a break?
I actually went along with several colleagues of mine, other chartered accountants.
And you went to Amsterdam also in April for 7 days?
Yes, I did.
And there wasn't any business purpose for that trip either, I understand?
No, I don't recall that was a business trip, no.
And in the month of May, you went for a long weekend at Canyon Ranch Spa,
Yes, I did.
getting ready for your bathing suit?
Not quite.
That was a personal trip.
Yes,
And you went to Vermont for 7 days, also in May?
Yes, I think it was 7 days.
Did you play some golf on that trip?
I think so. I would have brought my golf clubs, yes.
You live in Windsor now,
Yes,
and you've purchased a home there with your new girlfriend?
yes,
And Jason's friends live in Leamington for the most part?
yes, that's correct.
And you've learned to be quite understanding about Jason's desire to be with his friends on the weekends?
Absolutely, I have.
Last weekend, Jason canceled to go to his grade 8 graduation,
Yes, he did.
and he spent the weekend with his mother instead of with you.
Yes, he did.
And the weekend before that, he went to a Leaf game with his mother. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, no, that's correct. Yes, he did.
And that was also your weekend? You had rearranged a weekend, that was your weekend too?
We're flexible. Whenever it's appropriate that the kids spend more time with either one of us, I think that's fine.
You'll agree with me that Jason, at his age, has a lot of social pressure and personal interest in staying at home on some of your weekends.
I don't know whether I could answer that.
But you've learned to be quite understanding and flexible about that issue.
I've learned to be understanding and flexible because I love my children, and I think sometimes I have to do what's ever in their best interest.
So you said to your counsel this morning that you're willing to contribute to Jason's hockey expenses. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I basically pay for everything now.
And do you agree that the proposed hockey expense for Jason of about $4,000 a year is consistent with what you spent in other years?
Roughly, yes.
So your position on this is that you're willing to contribute, but that your wife should share equally with you in the cost of hockey.
I don't know whether it's up to me that she share equally, but I think she should share.
Right. So you're willing to contribute in whatever percentage of that expense the court determines is fair?
Yes,
Jason's adjusting well to the separation.
what do you mean by well?
He's doing all right. He's not having any behavioral difficulties, any major problems.
No, I don't think he is. He's obviously saddened that we're not together.
You agree that hockey's a good vehicle for him?
I think hockey is a good vehicle for him. He enjoys playing hockey, and it'll build up his confidence, yes.
And it's your dream as well to be in the NHL, isn't it?
Now? No, it was.
It was. And Samantha is an aspiring ballerina?
I think her mother would like to think that. I think Samantha enjoys ballet, and I think she's doing well.
And you've noticed an increased confidence and a real interest on Samantha's behalf in ballet?
I've noticed an increased confidence and increased participation in ballet.
And do you see that it has affected her in a positive way?
Yes,
Does she insist on wearing around her little ballet clothes even when she's not in lessons?
sometimes to show me, yes.
And she gives little demonstrations to the family of her ballet achievements?
Yes, she does.
And these expenses, are you willing to contribute to these expenses for Samantha?
Absolutely, absolutely.
In whatever percentage the court considers to be appropriate?
Yes,
Now, let's talk about Amanda.
Yes.
You say that she should work in the summer and part-time to subsidize her university education.
I said that I think she should work in the summer, and that perhaps during her first year at school to get adjusted, maybe a part-time job would not be something that she should partake in. But I think certainly during her educational career, she should have a part-time job at some point.
So let's talk about it just this year then, first of all.
Okay.
This summer, she's going to be a counselor at camp.
Yes?
And what do you expect that she's going to earn?
I don't really know how much they're paid. I think maybe $10 an hour.
Have you had any discussion with her about those expenses?
Which expenses?
I'm sorry, about her income from camp?
Well,
Did we tell you about her income or her expenses?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I am talking about what money she can earn when she's at camp
okay.
as a counselor.
We've had a general discussion about her employment, and at least from my part, I indicated to her that it would be important for her to contribute to her education, and I indicated to her that the monies that she earns during the summertime, part of those monies should be devoted towards her educational expenses.
So,
Is that what you're
yes,
asking me?
yes, thank you. So you're going to, would you agree with me she's going to earn about $2,500 for the summer as a camp counselor?
I have no idea how much she's going to earn.
And what percentage of whatever it is that she earns do you think that she should contribute?
I think 75% of whatever she earns, she should contribute to her education.
Okay, and you have changed your position a little bit, and you now say she shouldn't have to work part-time in first-year university. Is that right?
I think you have to understand my daughter. She's never lived away from home. I think this will be a big step for her to move 6 hours away from her home and going to university and not knowing very many people there other than a handful of friends and some family that live in Kingston. So I think the step shouldn't be taken lightly, but at the same time, I think she should get accustomed to it.
Okay. So have you read Ms. Joseph's report?
Yes, I have.
And I take it from what you've said that you agree with her comments with respect to Amanda,
What specific comment?
that Amanda will face many adjustments in her new life
I agree with that.
at Queen's, and that she will have to learn to manage her curriculum at the university level while learning to fend for herself in Kingston.
I agree with that.
Just before we leave that subject, Amanda didn't have the easiest time in high school, did she?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Scholastic achievement doesn't come easy for Amanda, does it?
Well, let me tell you, Amanda has done well at school, and she's worked part-time during her school year.
When was that?
This year,
In grade 13?
yes. She's worked 2 or 3 nights a week, and I think every other weekend. I think her grade 13 grades have been the best so far. Mind you, we've had to get her a tutor.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Hasn't she had a tutor all through grade 12 and grade 13?
No, my recollection is just grade 13, and I think it had to do with the science courses.
And wasn't one of the lessons of that tutoring that Amanda needs to work on concentration and staying focused?
I think it was a science course. I'm not sure whether or not the tutor dealt specifically with focusing on the material, but I think that all I can tell you is that the tutor was of a great help to her.
And do you think that one of the lessons of the tutoring is that if Amanda works hard, concentrates on what she's doing, she can do very well?
I think everyone can do that, but I think Amanda would benefit, yes.
Okay, Your Honor, perhaps this would be a good time to take a break.
All right, McCarthy, thank you.
Thank you.
The husband was played by Joe Castaldo, who is the husband of the program director, Kathy Castaldo, and is a criminal lawyer, which may account in part for his untrustworthiness in terms of how he's given his evidence. I'm not sure if any questions had to be asked of him, just looking at him. Sort of my take on what happened, and being there, of course, when the shooting took place, and watching it again, was the horror of your witness basically giving away his case in examination and giving you all of the answers that you didn't expect him to give. And we were talking about this over lunch today, and I asked Francine about that, and during the course of lunch, several of the lawyers there mentioned that it is something that does happen in the course of examinations. And that, of course, left Martha in the position where she probably wouldn't have asked very many questions at all had it not been for the fact that it was a demonstration. And the cross-examination appeared to have sort of two parts to it. Again, this is just my view of it, but the first part dealing largely with the income issue, which was handled extremely well, and the second part of it, in which you have to ask yourself whether it was necessary to ask any of the questions that she did ask. Where are you, Martha? What do you think about that?
I didn't get a lot in some of the second round of questions, but you mean did I need to because the concessions he'd made?
Sure. Yeah. The one of the obviously the issues that we were trying to define were the 40% issue, what the husband's real income was, and you'll hear Phil Epstein's cross-examination of Wayne Rudson on that part of it. And also the issues of the specials and whether or not Amanda should have been contributing to her education, etc. But yeah, the husband's evidence in chief, and in fact in response to Justice Jennings' question, was an acknowledgement that the expenses were reasonable, but he questioned, I think, what he should be contributing, which really wasn't much of a question at all, because that would be what the court would consider under the guidelines. So why even bother asking any questions about the specials?
I don't know. Well, maybe it was a mistake. What I was trying to do was deal with the two reports and get the witness to admit the central factual allegations or the central factual basis of the reports. So that the little girl is doing well in ballet, and that it does enhance her self-esteem, and that the hockey, even if he's not going to be an NHL player, is good for a kid who's in the middle of a divorce. And everything that Audrey's report says, whether or not Justice Jennings in the end was interested in Audrey's report is a different question. And then the trips part really had the same purpose, which was to go into the factual basis for the other report.
Sure. And I think it's a couple of points emerge from that, one of which is you have to anticipate the later evidence that's going to be given. In this case, there's going to be experts that are going to be giving evidence, and quite apart from challenging their methodology, you do want to, at that point in the course of the evidence given by the parties, start undermining the evidence of the expert on a factual basis. And on the issue of the trips, I suppose that the sequence of questions are going to be really important. For example, if you wanted to have asked the witness who appeared to be saying that these trips were all business related, that if he took his girlfriend with him, then it wouldn't be considered a business expense in terms of getting it out of his own mouth, that once he admits that the girlfriend was with him, that it wouldn't constitute a business expense. Could have been another way of getting around to deal with that issue. On the examination, and I asked this of Francine over lunch, what do you do when you have a witness who's given an answer such as given by the husband in this case, in which he basically acknowledges something that she thought was going to be the foundation of her case?
The husband normally, of course, in a real case would be much better prepared than he was in this case, and I do have to admit that the facts I had been given were not at all in line with the evidence that the husband was giving in his examination. So I chose to, at that time, I was absolutely stunned when he said he would pay his part of the extraordinary expenses, and he admitted that they were extraordinary expenses. He wasn't supposed to do any of that stuff. So I left it alone, but and just moved on and tried not to act too stunned. But one of the things that you would do, for an examination in chief, of course, would be longer than that one was. And I just tried to cover a couple of areas in the time that had been allotted. You might just leave it alone for a while and then come back to it and try and hit it at a different angle, maybe after you've had a break and you've had a chance to examine how you're going to put that to him. I've been thinking about it. I'm not sure how you would rehabilitate that. When he takes a position and says he's not going to contribute to add-ons, and then later on says, of course, he'll pay whatever's reasonable. Maybe then you have to go back to the income and show that his income isn't nearly as high as is alleged.
Justice Jennings, what do you? I mean, it was pretty obvious to you. I think that your shock was pretty obvious when the witness, and you even asked the witness the question.
I was cross-examining at the time.
Can't resist it.
With respect to the examination in chief, tell you one more war story. When I was articled a number of years ago, when I was about 4 years old, I had a principal who said to me that one of the fundamental jobs of the advocate when leading your client's witness is to cloak the client in dignity. And I think by that he intended me to understand that you were supposed to make the court like your client. And I thought Ms. Van Melle did a very good job in doing that. She had a little trouble establishing rapport at the outset, but I think that was probably lack of witness preparation more than anything else. But she quickly, I thought, established a rapport along the same lines as Ricki Harris did. Again, you watch the eye contact, the head up, the listening attentively to the answers. And she did that well. There was a real potential for sleaze factor in here. I mean, this guy was scripted as being a bit of a good old boy, and there was a lot of pretty strong suggestion that he was playing fast and loose with the available income. And she, I thought, did a good job in leading him into those areas and humanizing him to the extent that she could, and setting him up for the cross with kind of a, gee, this guy isn't such a bad guy after all sort of impression. At least that was the impression I had, that he really wasn't the ogre that was being made out. There were two things going back to the examination in chief of the wife. Absolutely every opportunity to stick the needle in was resisted by counsel examining the wife. Absolutely every opportunity to stick the needle in by Ms. Van Melle was rejected. They weren't taking shots at each other. At least I didn't get that impression. And I think that's the way to go, unless you have real sleaze that you can throw up. This case didn't have that, I guess, or not enough of it, and there were no shots taken back and forth. I thought it was a good examination in chief. She obviously got thrown for a loop with his mea culpa admission that I'm here to have you set a number, but I'm certainly buying the principle that I should be paying. And she handled it very well.
What about the I guess the technique that Francine used in dealing with Rudson's report, which was basically to give it to the witness and basically in sort of summary form ask whether he agreed or disagreed with certain parts of it?
Well, I thought that was fun. You're asking me whether that's a good tactic?
Yes.
I think it's a brilliant tactic. You got a report out there that you know is coming in. Try and ease its entrance into evidence by getting your own witness to accept those portions that are acceptable and take the sting out of it and take the surprise out of it. Right. That leads me to another comment I was going to make about Ms. Van Melle, which I thought she handled well, might have been handled a little more. She related back to the wife's evidence on some of her questions. And when you do that, you kind of limit the gap, if it's possible to do it. You can't do it in every case, but what she was really getting him to do was to agree that they weren't fighting over very much. Why are we here, I wonder? I guess it's just to pick some kind of a number, because I accept this and I accept that. We accept Amanda should go to this university. She took away the gulf that existed between their positions prior to him taking the stand, and I thought that was useful.
But I just want to ask you one other thing about that, though. In presenting Rudson's report to her client, is it better to do it sort of in summary form rather than line by line and saying, do you agree with this sentence, do you agree with that, or is it better just an outright rejection of what the inferences were that Rudson made from the facts as he understood them?
Well, I think that depends on the report. I mean, some reports I suppose you'll be able to accept, and that's the end of it, but Rudson's report couldn't be accepted whole as whole.
Right.
And I thought she handled it properly by summarizing.
There was a time limit as well, so that would have been part of the reason for doing it that way.
All right. I suppose that what we also saw were two different styles of cross-examination, Gary's versus Martha's.
Yeah, moving into the crosses, yeah, I think Martha had a tough time at the start. I had a note here that because of a question that may have been framed a little awkwardly, it seemed to me you let the guy get control at the outset on the tape, because he probably didn't understand the question. Then he was able to kind of reformulate it by saying, "What do you mean this, or this?" And then he asked you another. And I got the impression, gee, is he here to lecture counsel on it? But he seemed to take it away from you at first. There were a few open-ended questions in there which probably you wouldn't have asked in a real-life situation. I thought you used the trips well, but you might have, if your purpose was to show this guy spent day after day after day in the fast lane, you might have gone a little further. If your purpose was just to show that he took a lot of trips, he admitted right off the bat to you that he took 8 or 9 trips. There's so much money here that I'm not sure the trips matter a lot, but in any event, I thought you took him through them well and certainly created the impression that he was no stranger to the fast life. And this is very subjective, I find the expressions girlfriend and boyfriend when you're dealing with slightly overweight middle-aged persons to be kind of demeaning. If you want to use it once, go ahead, but after a while, I sort of say to myself, oh, come on. I mean, this marriage is over, they're moving on, there's a new life out there, let's not play around too much with pejoratives. So by the time I got down to the third time he asked if he took his girlfriend to Amsterdam or someplace, I was beginning to tune out a bit. But there may be some other people out there who just love that kind of stuff. I'm not one of them, and so take that as a subjective comment. I thought you asked an open-ended question that let him lecture you again just towards the end when you said something about, now Samantha is an aspiring ballerina. Well, to the extent that 8 or 10-year-olds, depending on which fact sheet you believe, can be aspiring anythings, I suppose the idea you're trying to get across is great, but the problem is when you look at that tape again, watch what happens. Again, Mr. Doe, I think his name is, seems to take over. And he defines the terms, and he goes on, he gives a little lecture about kids on ballet lessons, and that was a loss of control on a minor point, but I think maybe if you put the question, you know she loves the ballet, you know it's good for her to participate, and sort of lead him into it that way, rather than suggest that she's the next Margot Fontaine. It might have been more effective. I think the same thing was I had the same note about scholastic achievement doesn't come easily. It again lets him get into a lecture on his daughter's work habits and shows that he's a concerned parent.
Thank you, Justice Jennings. Martha, any response?
Having said that, was a good cross.
Thanks so much. I did think that the trips related not just to his income, but to his allegation about the 40%, and that was why I wanted to start off with them. I thought we start off with something strong that makes it look like the guy's positions are unreasonable, and deal with it undercut his income analysis and his 40% position. And I really tried to ask, I generally tried to ask non-leading, leading, not open-ended, and not complicated sentences. But I noticed that I said, isn't that true a lot of times, which is, I think any of those affectations you should try to keep away from, or that's what it says in all the cross-examination books.
it's not as easy as it looks, right? Is that it? All right, Francine, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so. Maybe just on Rudson's report, like always in chief, it's my practice to try and get the damaging evidence against your client out through the examination in chief to put the most favorable spin on it.
Grant, what about you? All right. All right, we're going to take a short break for coffee and come back and watch Philip Epstein.